Shout out to Edward Polanco on Patreon for 3 months of support. Get weekly goods, tutorial files, mockups, templates, items from my store, and more, as well as supporting the free tutorials on this channel. Check out my Patreon in the description below. What's up guys, Qehzy or Noah here, bringing you guys another tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create these abstract refraction headers in Photoshop. And it's actually a Cinema 4D and Photoshop collaboration essentially. The first part of this tutorial actually comes from this tutorial that I did about creating abstract facets. So if you want to do everything from scratch, you can watch this tutorial first to learn how to create these shapes in Cinema 4D. But I'm also going to include the renders in a download down below. So if you guys don't have Cinema 4D, don't feel like doing the rendering part, don't feel like following this tutorial, that's fine. You can download the renders and follow along. But we're going to be creating headers like this one here. This one's for my buddy Crispy and one for my buddy Polar. We're going to be trying to recreate those the best we can here in this tutorial. And it's a pretty straightforward tutorial. It actually overlaps somewhat with a Skillshare class I did. So if you're interested in that, in creating posters with the same effect, check out my Skillshare. You can get 2 months free with my link down below. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial. So I'm going to be creating a Twitter header like I did for those guys. And this is 3000 by 1000 document with 300 resolution. So if I just do something like this, you can see this. This is the settings I am using. These are the settings I'm using for this. But we don't want to do anything in here quite yet when it comes to adding those renders in. We will drop in our background color a while because I know what it is since I have it written down. So let's get a solid color and we're going to get 041724. It's like a darkish blue. Click OK. There's our background color. But now we want to go ahead and add in our renders. But we're not going to add them in here because they'll be too small. We want to add them into its own document, set them up there, and then bring them over. So I'm going to get the refraction render, drag it onto my Photoshop icon so it creates its own file here, the appropriate size. And you'll notice this layer is rasterized, which I don't want because I want to be able to scale it up at some point. So I'm going to drag that in again along with refraction 7. So boom, boom, delete that original one. So now we have these two here. And in that tutorial that I mentioned before, this is what we created. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new layer and flip my colors so black is the background. Press Command Delete to fill that background in. So we have a temporary background. On the refraction 7 layer, we want to add a levels. So you could do that by going to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and then that's a one-time thing. Or you can come down here and do a Levels. If you press Alt and click on that to make it a clipping mask, it will only affect that guy. And we can bring this up. So I want to go to about 140. 146 works. And we'll hide that. Let's go to the refraction 7 layer, set it to lighten. And now you can see it kind of blends in with our other object in the background there. But we want to bump this down. So let's start at 50 to put in 50%. And it's a little dull. We will brighten it up with a color correction at the end of this whole thing, but let's brighten it up a little more. Maybe go to like 61. That kind of works. And let's group that stuff and call it facet. There we go. So there's our shape. Now we want to add one more thing, which is optional depending on what kind of header you're going for. But we want to create some ellipses or circles. So let's get the ellipse tool and create an ellipse that's maybe half the size height wise of our render. Might be even a little less, but it fits right in there. And we want to double click this and we want to make this pink or one of the colors in our render. So if I click one of these pinks and just brighten it up, get something like that, that should work. I also have a color written down and it's B445E5. So, okay, that's a little more purplish and that'll work. So let's do that. Duplicate that ellipse and then go to the facet group, press Command J on that and that will duplicate it. Press Command E, that will merge it. Drag it up above our ellipse, press Alt and click on it. And now that is a clipping mask of that ellipse. Set the facet to lighten and set the opacity again to like something like 50, and you can mess around with that too. Also mess around with the location, so I'm going to drag that over so it's like so. Go to the duplicated ellipse below, press Command T to transform, press Alt, increase the size just a bit, and then set the opacity of that to like maybe 55-ish, somewhere in there. Yeah, like 53. Select all of that stuff, group it, and call that circle. Okay, go to the S. So these are the two shapes we're going to use as the base of our banner then. So the circle kind of complements the sharpness of our object, and you could use it if you want the circle or not. It's up to you. I'm going to use it, so let's select both of those and drag them into our template here. And then you can close this. You could save it if you want, or do whatever, but we're going to go ahead and close it without saving it. And you notice this is a little small. We want this to be bigger, and that's why we did not rasterize anything. So we can press Command T and scale this up to be pretty big. And I don't know if we want it to be that big, but we want it to be bigger. So something like that. I think that's a fairly decent size. So it's about twice the height of our header here. So now we want to arrange these in some interesting way so they blend together and we get a nice banner shape. So I'm going to hide the circle for now and set up the facet. And the facet has these cool arms coming off of it here that I kind of want to be the main focal point on the left side. So I want that to be set up somewhere like this. That's pretty cool. And then we can duplicate that, and I'm going to take the duplicated one below and move it on over, and let's find some place for this next one. Let's give a little rotation and maybe set up something. Maybe we can decrease the size. Let's just play around. I kind of want this corner to be taken up. I think that's pretty good. Maybe make it even bigger, and I'm thinking we put a circle right here. So let's actually get that circle and bring it below the first facet but behind the other facet. Bring it nice and central to this spot. And let's bring it like right on top of this guy so we can cover up this area that's a little chaotic, and put that right there. I think that's pretty good. And we can actually duplicate that circle, bring it to the very top, and let's add a couple small ones over on this left side. So have one peeking out here, duplicate with Command J, maybe one off to the left, and we'll make that one even smaller. Very nice. And if I open these two guys, I'm going to click on the facet and just move it around. So maybe like that, and then move this guy around. Actually, let's just make this guy a little bigger and put him there. So there are our circles and our facets. Maybe we do one more facet. Actually, let's get the bottom facet, duplicate it, and maybe just go to the top here. Have something sticking down. There we go. That's nice and simple. So there is our setup. I think that looks pretty good. This is based on my polar header, by the way. We're trying to recreate that one. And I think that's pretty good. Now we want to add some shadows to these guys. So I'm going to go below these two circles and create a new layer. And we can get black or purple, or like the darkest color in here. So if I get the color tool and just click that dark purple, bring it down close to black, that will work. Flip it so that is our color. Let's get the brush tool and get a soft brush. And go to these circles. Which two circles are these? Okay, the two small ones. Let's come over here, and the brush is about the size of the circle. Click once. Do the same over here. Click once. Create another new layer below the other circle, and again do the same thing. Click once. Okay, there's some shadows. You could leave that on normal, or you could press Command to select both of them and set them to overlay, which is what I'm going to do. And then we want to do the same thing for where the facets overlay. So this one and the one we put at the top kind of blend together, so I'm going to leave them alone. But this guy we're going to go above create a new layer. Keep that same brush tool and the color, and let's go to this spot, add a shadow, and come here, maybe add a shadow. You can barely see it, but we're gonna add it anyway. And I think that's pretty good. Again, let's set that to overlay. And if we wanted to, we could alt click on that to make it a clipping mask, which I think I will do there. We could also go to the bottom, create a new layer, and add some shadows to the background. Maybe just subtly set them to overlay, and I'm gonna decrease the opacity to about 50% on those, just so they're nice and subtle. And then everything we have here, I'm gonna select except the color fill background, press Command G, and I'm gonna call this like renders. Let's go to the color fill and create a new layer. And keeping with the soft brush, let's get white. I'm going to increase the size, and I'm going to start from the top left here and go to the right to create some light up here. Set that to overlay and maybe decrease the opacity, maybe 75, that'll work. And create another new layer, and this time go in the middle. So I actually have a guide. If I press Command H, this guide will pop up. If you don't have the guide, press Command R to get your rulers and drag that out, and it should click into place right in the middle, which is 1500. But let's go to like the top middle and click to add a white light source. Set that to overlay, and we'll leave that at 100. Press Command H then when you want that guide gone. But those overlays kind of give some character to the background, which is what we want. Now we want to add some interest to the render. So they're kind of boring now. But if we go to the renders group, press Command J and Command E, then we can go to image adjustments levels and take this left arrow and go all the way to the top, so we only see the brightest parts of our renders. Click OK and duplicate that once because we want two. And we will hide the one. Let's get the first one, go to filter, blur, motion blur. And this is gonna give us a really sweet like glowing effect almost, or shine effect. So let's increase the distance. Yeah, like 200, 45-degree angle works. You can mix up the angle if you want. Click OK, set that layer to screen, and then go to the other one. Make that visible, go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and maybe not that big, but let's go to, okay, that was actually pretty good. Let's go maybe 28. I think 28 works. Let's click OK and go to screen. So you can see that adds like a glowing effect to the bright areas where light would like shimmer. I'm gonna name that bottom one motion, and then that second one Gaussian. I don't know, I don't think I spelled that right, but I got the idea. But we're gonna take that Gaussian blur one and duplicate it with Command J, and then press Command G to group it. And we're gonna zoom out here a bit with Command minus, press Command T, increase the size a little bit, actually like a lot. So we're making this a lot bigger so we get this streak going on. Press enter, and then press Command U and use the hue to change the color. So we want to get like a pinkish, and I went the wrong way. So about plus 100, I'm at plus 106, click OK, duplicate that again and bring it down maybe over here. Press Command 0 to zoom in all the way. And we're gonna go to the group and come down to the layer mask, get black as our color, which we already do, get a soft brush and kind of erase some of these bits, but we want to leave some of this pink around in some areas, especially like on top of the circles, because it gives it a bit of a glow and incorporates a little more pink into the overall banner. And you can mix up the colors. You don't have to do pink, you could do like red, and you could duplicate it a couple more times to have even more, but I thought that was a good way to incorporate some more colors and some more glow. Okay, now we are getting pretty far along here and it still looks a bit odd, and I want to add a quick color correction so we can have the colors we want. and so this can look even better. So come down to the bottom here, let's get levels, and we're gonna mess with the contrast a little bit. So let's make this left one like 5, and then this right one let's make about 200. And you can see that really brightens everything up, darkens up the background a little bit, and that's what we want. Maybe that's a little too bright. Maybe we go a little higher than 200, maybe 210. Let's add a hue and saturation and go +20 on the hue. You can see that kind of changes the color. We have a bit of a darker blue, but if we go to the layer mask, get the soft brush again, get black, keep it as a pretty big size, and just click in a couple areas like so. So if I command click this, you can see the areas I clicked, and that just adds some of that darker blue. I think that darker blue looks a little better, but I like some of that cyan in there. So we do that, we erase some parts, and now we have more blues and just overall better colors in my opinion. And then finally, if this isn't vibrant enough for you, go ahead and add a vibrance to really make those colors pop and feel saturated. And I'm going +40 here, and every time I do a tutorial and I copy some of my settings, it always feels too saturated and bright. I have like +48 written down, but I'm gonna go +40 and kind of leave it there. And we can group these and call it like CC as our color correction. One other thing you can do here, by the way, if you want to completely change colors and whatnot, and you don't want to use like the hue and saturation, you can come down here and get gradient maps. So let's actually go above the levels, and let's go down. I have a few here saved that are going to go on my Patreon soon, by the way. If you want to support the Patreon, if you're a $5 member, you get weekly goods now. I'm doing weekly goods every Friday. This is going to be one eventually, all these gradients. Got to create a few more. But if we go to color and set that to like 50%, we can do some cool things here. So I haven't tried out that gradient. It looks okay. Actually, it looked really bad, but let's go to, so this one looks pretty cool. This one looks okay. Okay. Actually, this one I think I used, and I don't know. Yeah, okay, we went a little less. Maybe if we go above the hue and saturation, I don't know. I used this one on the crispy header, and I don't remember exactly how I set it up, but I used a gradient map and somehow used that. Oh, maybe I did hue or something. Okay, so I was using the wrong gradient for that, but you can see I did color 38%. So let's see what that looks like. Color. And let's get this one 38%. And it's slightly different. Oh, maybe if we get rid of the hue and saturation. It's close. I think I might have done a darker levels on that to make that kind of work. But yeah, so that's just something you can play around with. Maybe if we went darker here, I don't know. But feel free to mess with the gradients to get different results. Also, if you make your own render by following the original tutorial on creating the renders, you can change the colors to other things. Now we're going to go ahead and add the text, and I'm going to do it kind of in between some of these facets and stuff. You could just do it on top of everything. I like to try to blend it in somewhat. So let's go, which facet is this? That's the main one. It's going to be on top of that. But maybe it's below this circle. So is that the shadow to the circle? Yes, it is. So our text is going to go like here. So I'm going to put everything above it into a group and everything below it into a group. And maybe we take all that stuff out of the renders folder, and there we go. So let's get some facets there and some facets there, and then let's put our text here. Get the text tool, let's get white, and the font I'm going to be using is called Arcade, and I'm just going to use Polar's name since I'm recreating the header I made for him. And let's set that up. Let's start it from the circle here so we can have it behind it a little bit, and then have it go to the other circle like that. And you'll notice it's kind of hard to read with some of the brightness we got going in the background, and we will change that here in a second. First, let's put this in a group of its own, call it text. And I'm going to do everything first, and then we're going to add a little bit of a rotation. So let's double click on this guy and add a gradient. Keep it at normal, but let's just get a 2-color gradient. So let's click on this. Let's get the first gradient, or the bottom part. And the color for that is C7CED8. Click OK, get the second color, and that is 9FAAB7. Click OK, click OK, click OK. Let's go ahead to our facets. So one of these guys, let's get this facet, duplicate with Command J and Command E to merge, and bring that above our text here. And let's make that a clipping mask. So press Alt and click on that guy. And actually that won't work because we have a gradient. So let's actually press Command, click, and then click the layer mask, and then set the layer to lighten and about 15%. And then unchain it real fast, and then move that to kind of cover the whole text. I don't know if you can see this. Let's bump up the opacity. So this is just going to be like a subtle facet in there. Let's do it like that. Be sure to relink it, and then let's change our opacity to 15. Then let's get a rectangle with the rectangle tool. Flip our colors here. Let's make sure we have that dark purple again, and just cover the bottom half of the text, and then press Command, click the text again to select it. Go to Select, Modify, Contract, and let's do about 6. Click OK, and then click the layer mask, and boom, we get like this overlay going on. And we can set that to overlay. You can mess with the opacity too, maybe knock it down a bit. So about 70 works for me. Go back to our text, press Command J to duplicate, and then on that bottom one, right click and clear layer style. Use the arrow keys and go down like 3, and then go to the left about 3 to create sort of like a drop shadow here. Double click on the text, get a color, and the color we're going to use for this is 011C4B. So it's like a dark blue. Click OK. Maybe even make that a little bigger with the arrow keys so we can see that a little better. Go to that facet clipping mask we have, duplicate it, bring it down. This time we're gonna right click, delete layer mask, alt click, and make it a clipping mask instead of a layer mask, and bump up the opacity so it's a little more visible. I don't know if you can see those changes. Let me zoom in for you guys. So you can see it just adds some light spots to that. And then if we go to the text, so click the text, create a new layer, it will automatically make that a clipping mask. Get the brush tool and get white. And if you have a cool brush, use it here to add some cool detail. So I have a bunch of these in my brush pack 2. So let's just click one of these and boom. Click it there and then set that to overlay, and that will add some cool details to this in my opinion. You can't really see it here, but if we made that like more if we made that a little more pronounced, you could see it. And it's kind of subtle. I kind of actually like the subtlety of it right now. Maybe we go normal and just decrease it a little bit to make it pop more, so you could do that. Up to you. Let's bump that down to like 15. Go back to our original text and duplicate that again and bring it all the way to the bottom of our text. So this is our bottommost text. And set that up even further down and left, but kind of keeps with the same path as the dark one. So somewhere around there. We're going to keep that gradient, but let's double click and add some other things. So let's add a stroke to the outside. and we want that to be very small. I mean, not very small, but smaller. So let's do like 6. And instead of blue, or we could do blue here actually, that doesn't look too bad, but let's click color and just click our pink. Click OK, and then go to drop shadow. And yeah, we want an angle of about 112. Spread, we want 0. We want a higher opacity, maybe even a normal opacity. And we want something like this. Let's bump down that opacity now. Actually, let's change the angle. I'm not liking 112. 132 kind of works. Let's bump down the distance. Okay, I'm kind of happy with that. So 50-ish%, 132 angle, 33 distance, and 0 everything else. Click OK. And that's like a solid little drop shadow to everything. You can change the angle of that shadow if you don't like that. It kind of looks weird now that I'm looking at it. So let's go to like 60, click OK. There we go, there's our text setup. And if we hide that, I just realized this is out of our group, so let's make sure that's in our group. Let's close the text group and press Command T on it, and let's give it a slight rotation now to kind of follow our render in the background there. And set it up like that. Press enter, there we go. And we want to just go below the text above the facet, create a new layer, get the brush tool, get a soft brush, and we want to get that purple we were using before, or our dark color, whatever that may be. Let's zoom in here, and let's just go lightly behind our text like that. Nice and simple. Set that to overlay, and that should just help with the contrast of reading the text. If overlay doesn't work, you can keep it at normal and maybe decrease the opacity a little bit so it blends in pretty well. But that's just to make sure you can read the text all right. And then if you have any subtext to add, you can also do that. I did like Mr. Cold Boy on his, and I think it looks better if you add some spacing between the letters, like 200. Press Command T and let's make that a little smaller and give it a matching rotation. You'd probably want to rotate these together so they're the same. Well, let's do something like that. There we go. And then finally, we want to do some finishing touches. So I have everything in a group already. If you don't, select everything and press Command G to group it. And let's press Command J to duplicate and Command E to merge. And then what we want to do is get the rectangular marquee tool right here and select everything, press Command C, Command V, and now we have our cropped header. Let's go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and we want to add just a vignetting. So you can do it here in the Effects tab, customize the vignetting, and I'm gonna leave it at 0 there, because you can also come to the presets here and you have a vignetting option and you can mess with that. So maybe we just go medium. That should work. And if you don't like some of the noisy and grainy parts of this, you could go to the first tab and bump down the texture to make it more of a glass look. It kind of works better. Maybe bump down the clarity as well. That's up to you. I'm actually going to keep the clarity at 0, and I'll bump down the texture a little bit. But if we click OK, you can see that's the difference. The big thing is the vignetting. I think that really helps out. So your eye just focuses mainly on the text, and everything else is secondary, which is what you want with something like this. Finally, once you do that, you can maybe duplicate it one more and press Command T and do some fun little skewing. So if we press Command and take this point out, we can like skew it a little bit. Maybe skew the top corner there, skew the bottom left. And yeah, do something like that. And you got a pretty interesting header there. Now, it kind of looks off-centered, so I'd have to probably mess with that skewing even more for something like that. But there we go. There's our header, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please leave a like. You can actually download these PSDs on my Patreon if you are a $5 member or higher. So check that out if that interests you. You also get shoutouts in the beginning of my videos. If this video hits 100 likes as well, I will post the PSD for the polar header in the description down below. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe for more tutorials. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. They're all linked below. Check out my store for some of the goods I use. Check out my Skillshare for more full tutorials in class form. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.